All right, welcome back. It's Niners Nightly on KMBR's YouTube channel. I'm Larry Krueger. Hope everybody's having a fantastic day. And, we're going to be here for the next hour talking Niner football. And, of course, welcome in 28 people in the room as we get it rolling and hit like and subscribe. Of course, you hit like, more people find the overall stream in the YouTube algorithm if you hit subscribe. Anytime we go live on KMBR's YouTube channel, you don't have to miss even a second of the action. So all of that is really easy. Just hit like and subscribe. And thanks for being here on a Friday night as we come to you the day after the 49ers' first preseason game of the year. And it was a good game. It was a 19-13 Titans victory. And we're going to kind of go through it and talk about some of the key points and play a couple sound bites and talk a little bit about the games. But I would like to know, just in the chat, just what did you guys think of the 49ers' first game? What did you think of who's your favorite young 49er? Who's, there's the existing group of Niners, right? I mean, the Niners have their core. And it's it's like everybody knows what their core is. It's one of probably the best known core of football players that any team has in the entire league. That's how big time the Niners' best players are when you think of, the Christian McCaffreys, the George Kittles, the Kyle Juszczyks. And I put Juszczyk in there because he's one of their older players, and he's also a Pro Bowl fullback. The Trent Williams, the Mike Evanses, the Deebo Samuels, the Nick Bosas, the Dre Greenlaws, the Fred Warners, the veteran players that the Niners have. That's their veteran core. And they're all kind of, 28 to 30 plus. Trent being the oldest, but he still looks amazing, by the way. But then there's this whole young core. Grayson Halton, Romello Height, Jaden Duggar, Ephesians Prysock, rookies. But then there's also the young core of guys that have been here the last couple of years. Alfred Collins, C.J. West, Upton Stout, Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa, Renardo Green, Tatum Bethune. And if you notice, the last 3 years, the Niners have, they had a rough 21, 22, and 23 drafts. Rough, very rough. 24, better. 25, better. This year, better. So now they're 3 drafts removed from their 3 draft kind of, nightmare run there. I mean, they got Brock Purdy in that run, but not a lot else. And so they really did need the last 2 or 3 drafts to be volume drafts and to hit. And you know the way it works. Sometimes your rookies step in day one and they play well. Randy Moss stepped right out of Marshall and into the Minnesota Vikings and was great as a rookie. It's the exception. He was the exception and not the rule. The rule is that most rookies take some time. And sometimes they're good right away. Sometimes they're, most personnel people that I know feel like you can get a half a season out of a rookie, and that's all you can depend on in their rookie year. And that half season can be the beginning of the year, and, you force feed them in camp. They get a job. They make the roster. Suddenly they've got a role, and they play half the year. They get hurt, and they shut it down. Or they don't get a job out of training camp. They're backup initially, but they work their way into the starting lineup, let's say halfway through their rookie year, and they give you, the second half of the year. But it's rare, really rare, that a rookie steps out of college into the pros, starts off hot in training camp, looks great in week 1, is an immediate contributor, and then is there playoff time in January, Super Bowl time in February. It's just rare. It's very difficult to do, to have that kind of longevity. Not longevity, that's not the word. Longevity would be like years and years. Have that kind of durability, I should say, over the course of a full rookie year, especially coming out of all the draft lead up and the combine and all the different things you got to do to kind of transition from college senior or college prospect to a professional. There's a lot of work that goes into the offseason that first year. And a lot of these guys are a little bit burnt out. And then we see them get better from year 1 to year 2. They get even better from year 2 to year 3. We'll talk about Curtis Rourke. Look how good he looked last night. Going from year 1 to year 2. It's like night and day. He looked really comfortable. He looked great. I mean, he looked really great. We'll talk more about that. Quiet feet, throwing dimes, 87% completion percentage or whatever it was. He looked great. So then you got, guys that come of age, and sometimes it takes a year. Sometimes it takes 2 years. Sometimes there's an injury. Sometimes there's, an adjustment as far as strength or speed that has to be done. So sometimes it takes a year to adjust. Well, the Niners now have 3 draft classes in a row where they're waiting on the Cowings and the Watkinses and the Jordan Jameses and all these guys. I mean, Jair Brown. And I think this is the year that a lot of this stuff's going to come together. I love the addition of Raheem Morris. I really think it's going to help the secondary. And you've got lots and lots and lots of young players that have potential, and the arrow's pointing up on a lot of these young players. So it's an exciting time. So who of the group that's coming on, the next great Niners, the guys in their first 3 years, who's your favorite? Who's your guy? Who's the guy that you love watching the most? So we'll go into it. When I was at the Cardinals, we did this exercise between minicamp and training camp. And the exercise was we would go through the 90-man camp roster, and we would give just a real basic, we did not lots of thought, not a big, just is the arrow pointing up? Is the arrow pointing down? Or is it neutral? There's an old saying, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. So, and this kind of had that philosophy in mind, just a general look at your roster. Are you getting better or are you getting worse? Is your team, getting deeper, or do you have guys that are suddenly kind of getting old overnight and you're not getting deeper? You're not more talented. You're actually, you've got an older team that's going south, that's starting to age. And I did this exercise for the Niners coming into camp. Okay. And I'll share with you a little bit of the results on this. One, I had, and this is on the 49ers offense. Okay. I had 27 players on the Niners offense with the arrow pointing up. So they're getting better. 27 players on their offense coming into camp. I had the arrow pointing up. Okay. And based on where they were in their age and their career. Okay. So give you an idea. Here's the list of the guys, the 27 offensive players, arrow pointing up. This is all based on age. Okay. Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, Curtis Rourke, Adrian Martinez, Kalen Black, Jordan James, Isaac Guerrero, Sincere McCormick, Jake Tonjes, Ricky Pearsall, of course, he's out right now, Dejon, Stribling, Jordan Watkins, Jacob Cowing, Junior Bergen, who's no longer on the team. He got waived the other day. Wesley Grimes, Will Pauling, Connor Colby, Dom Pooney, Colton McKivitz, Carver Willis, Enrique Cruz, Drake Nugent. There's a couple on here that probably shouldn't be on here that I have, like Brett Toth and Verdarian Lowe. They're probably more neutral or getting worse. Then getting, neutral players, guys that aren't necessarily getting better or worse. I have like Patrick Taylor, Luke Farrell, Braden Willis, Hayden Rucci, Christian Kirk, Demarcus Robinson, who I would put on the getting better list now because he's had a great camp. Malik Turner, Colton Dowell, who's no longer there, Austin Pleasance, Brandon Parker, Zach Thomas is not there, Isaac Alarcon. And then getting worse on offense, Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Juszczyk, George Kittle, Mike Evans, Trent Williams, Jake Brendel. Now, it's only six names, but there's 6 offensive starters out of your 11. So, you have the vast majority of your players on offense are getting better, 27 with the arrow up, 12 with neutral, 6 with the arrow down. So, you've got 45 total offensive players, 27 getting better, 12 staying the same, 6 getting worse. All 6 are starters. So that kind of adds a wrinkle. Let's flip it over to the defense for a second. The defense, I had 28 players. There were 43 defensive players on the roster. 28 of them are getting better. 11 are staying the same. Only 4 are getting worse. And those would be Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Eli Apple. Only 4, but 3 of them are starters. So you only have 10 guys on your entire 90-man roster that are getting worse, but 9 of the 10 are starters. So that's a concern. But the bigger point, the overarching point here, is that you have 90 total players on your camp roster, offense, defense, special teams. I had roughly 63%, 57 of 90 in that category of getting better. 23 staying the same, and only 11%, 10 of 90 getting worse. That's a really high percentage. When we did it with the Cardinals, it was like 52, 55 might have been the highest that of the percentage of the players on the 90-man camp roster that are getting better. The Niners numbers at 63% of the players, are young players with the arrow pointing up. It's just a lot. It's a lot of young players. And when young players all get better at once, your team can make gigantic strides forward. And conversely, if the Niners' 9 core stars, the Trents, the CMCs, the Bosas, the Kittles, the Greenlaws, the Warners, if these guys are older players, right, and they're not getting better, they're getting worse. If they all get noticeably worse in 1 year, that's going to be hard to overcome. The good news for the 49ers is that they're 9 core veterans that make up their stars, let's say. They're veteran stars. Outside of Kittle, the rest of them, and Bosa, who's now been hurt or now been, sitting out with soreness and tendonitis, the rest of these guys look amazing. I mean, Fred Warner, Greenlaw, Trent Williams hasn't looked this good in years. I mean, this group of veterans does not look like they've crested the hill and are going to suck. They look like guys who can contribute and still play at a very, very high level here in 2026. So that's the first question. Are there the 9 core guys that drive this team? Are they going to drive them? Are they driving themselves off the personnel cliff and they cannot be counted on? And if that was the case, the Niners were probably going to be right there with where Chris Sims says, they're too old, they're too brittle, they're too this, they're too that. It's not their year. It's, Jason La Canfora. People I've talked to say they're going downhill. Really? I mean, okay. But if you look really closely, a lot of the guys that many people didn't know anything about until last night are guys that are going to be on this football team and be good players. So let's talk about last night. First of all, let's start with Curtis Rourke. I suspected he would look good. Why? Because he's not a rookie. He's a second-year player. He's not. I asked Brock Purdy about his rookie year. He's like, man, I could barely remember the plays that Shanahan had I could barely remember all the verbiage connected to each play as I'm walking to the line of scrimmage. So that's where he was in his development. He was really raw. Brock Purdy wasn't ready to play as a rookie in training camp, even though he looked good. He wasn't ready to play. He needed more. His head was swimming. It was all new. Rourke is not in that situation. Rourke had a redshirt year. Rourke played his final year at Indiana with a torn ACL. How about that, by the way? He played his entire senior year at Indiana, leading Indiana, hardly a football power, though they are the defending national champions now, to the college football playoff. He was Mendoza before Mendoza. He was Signetti's guy before Mendoza. And Rourke gutted it out, played on the torn ACL. They eventually lost in the CFP semis, I believe, or maybe in the first round. They lost to Notre Dame in South Bend. No shame in that, right? Notre Dame was really, really good. So he that's what he did at Indiana. He kind of proved that he's tough. But then he had a whole redshirt year, so he didn't play, even though he was on the team. So instead of like being like Brock, who's like, man, what's the verbiage? What plays? What is this play? And he's operating it in a preseason game when he's only run the play a few times in practice. Rourke could coach the offense at this point. He's had over a year in this offense. I mean, he's memorized this stuff. He knows what to do. He knows the plays. He knows the checkdowns. He knows all the stuff that's in the offense, and it can be vast. So that's a major advantage. So that you got to remember that. We're not seeing a rookie. We're seeing a second-year player, and he should look advanced. He is advanced, so he should look advanced, and he did. And he came out, and he was 12 of 14 for 101 yards. Wasn't sacked, showed, better mobility. I did not know that he could move like that. I went back and looked at some of his rushing stats from Miami of Ohio, or I should say not Miami of Ohio, just Ohio. That's what he played for the Ohio Bobcats in the MAC before he transferred to Indiana. He played 4 years, played 5 years, I believe, for Ohio, and then came back and had that final year at Indiana. So he had a long college career. He's an older prospect to begin with, but he also showed mobility, not necessarily at Indiana, but he did show it in the MAC, and he showed it last night. He took off. He had a 6-yard run. He had with 3 carries for 14 yards. You don't have to be a burner, but you got to have some pocket mobility. You can't be a statue back there. If you're a statue, that's not going to bode well for you. And he's not a statue. Mick Lombardi told us the other day that they're working on his, he's got kind of a narrow base naturally. So they're working on the drill every day in practice where he keeps that wide base, which is what Shanahan prefers from his quarterbacks. He wants a quarterback who can throw from a wide base and just helps you in the pocket. And he wants you to keep that wide base throughout your time in the pocket. So they work on it, right? Well, he kept that wide base in this first game against the Titans, and he looked good. And he's got Brock and Mac who process as well as any, 2 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. So he's got that as his example. He's got the ultimate guy as far as work ethic and how to prepare in Brock Purdy. I mean, Sam Darnold told us that. He's like, Brock Purdy prepares like nobody else. He's really, really, really prepared at all times. And now Curtis Rourke's getting to watch that. So he's got the perfect coach, the perfect play caller, the perfect tutelage quarterbacks in front of him to kind of mentor him. It's a great culture. They're all the same age in that quarterback room. They get along really well. They're boys. Everything's, they got a great thing going in that quarterback room. And it's funny, Kay Stevenson, when I was working for him in the Canadian League, used to say to me, because we talked a lot of personnel and different things about different aspects of personnel. And he said, you know what, Lair, the quarterback, the culture of your quarterback room will eventually become the culture of your football team. And so it's really, really important that you pick your quarterbacks well and that the whole thing kind of fits together, because if it's a toxic room, you'll have a toxic locker room eventually. But if it's a healthy room with a great open line of communication and mutual respect and guys that work hard, then that will also rub off on the rest of your roster. Your quarterback room, according to Kay, would become, the culture of your quarterback room will become the culture of your football team over time. So pick your quarterbacks wisely and make sure that you have the right players, the right blend, and the right people. And the 49ers have adhered to that. I don't know if they knew Kay Stevenson's mantra, but they've indirectly adhered to that. And you saw the effects of the positive attributes of that room when Rourke comes out and plays the way he does. He's got a great developmental, rapport or support system surrounding him there. But he looked great. 12 of 14 and showing mobility, knowing where to go with the football. Getting it out quick, nice little zip to the sideline. Some, wasn't 100% accurate on every pass, but had some dimes. The pass that Stribling hauled in on the sideline was a very, very well thrown ball. That was over the defender, inside a very tight window, to the sideline. And he gave Stribling, it was going to be one of those, the ball placement on that was superb. It was like Stribling's going to make this catch or nobody's going to make this catch. And that's how that ball's thrown on that particular route. And, Rourke threw it perfectly. So a lot of great things. Now, the question is, how do you react to it? The Niners have roster limitations. I mean, everybody's got roster limitations, but they just picked up 5 new offensive linemen in the offseason. They've got a bunch of new defensive linemen. They've got one of the deeper wide receiver cores. They got a really deep linebacking core. They've got about 8 different guys who are NFL caliber corners. So they got a lot of depth, and there's spots that I guarantee you that Shanahan and his coaching staff and the personnel department are like, hey, we need to take an extra offensive lineman. Hey, we need to keep an extra defense. Hey, we need to keep, we can't go with 5 linebackers. We need to go with 6. We can't go with, 5 wide receivers. We don't want to lose the Watkinses of the world. We're going to go with 6. So you can't go with an extra guy at more than one spot usually. And then they have like 5 different spots where they're looking to bring an extra guy. I mean, they drafted 2 offensive linemen and they signed 3. So what? There's only, and none of them necessarily are going to be starters right away. And most teams have, 8 or 9 offensive linemen on their roster. So you right now you've got 5 starting offensive linemen and you brought in 5 new guys. You have 10 offensive linemen. That doesn't include any of your holdovers. You're not going to go with 10 offensive linemen most likely. So, I mean, or maybe are you? Maybe they are. And then it's going to be hard to carry Rourke. So here's the question. Do you go with 3 quarterbacks? Can you go with 3 quarterbacks? After watching Rourke, I'll tell you right now, he's not going to clear waivers. There's no way. He played at Indiana. The Indianapolis Colts have Daniel Jones, and he's out for the first part of the year with Achilles. They're trading Anthony Richardson. It's basically the Riley Leonard show. No, I love Riley Leonard. I'm a big Riley Leonard fan. I really like that kid as a prospect too. But he doesn't throw the ball like Rourke. He doesn't have the same pocket ability that Rourke has. So if you're Indiana, if you're Chris Ballard and it's August 30th and it's time to check the waiver wire at the cutdown and you're looking at your quarterback room, and then all of a sudden former Indiana quarterback Curtis Rourke, who's, ready to play and has played really, really quality, efficient football in the preseason, is there for the plucking for nothing. And you don't think he's going to take him off waivers? He is. He is. So there will be no, put Curtis Rourke through waivers and put him on the practice squad. Nope. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So then you got to decide, do you want to keep 3 quarterbacks on your roster? And then does Rourke playing well, what does that do to Shanahan and Lynch as far as their mindset? Does he play well? Does him playing well mean that they're going to keep him and go, you know what, we'll go 3 quarterbacks. We'll go with Mac and Brock and Curtis, and we'll keep all 3 quarterbacks. We'll devote an extra roster spot to a quarterback all year. Basically, it's like going man down because he's not going to play. He's really not going to play. So do you do that? Or do you sit there and what does the Curtis Rourke success last night do to you? And what does it do to the other teams in the league? Do you look at this and go, you know what? We'll trade Mac Jones. We got Curtis Rourke, and he looks like something. And we only have 1 more year of Mac Jones, and Mac Jones is making $4 million. Malik Willis is making $45 million. They're basically comparable quarterback prospects. You think Mac Jones is going to stick? No. I mean, it's amazing to me that he hasn't begged out right now. That just tells you how happy Mac is as a guy and how he's got his whole career kind of, he understands that he's in a good spot right now with Shanahan, with the Niners. And he's just going to let it play out. And he's a great guy, so he's not going to be a toxic, disturbance inside the Niner locker room. But do you keep Mac and trade Rourke? Do you keep Rourke and trade Mac? Do you keep all 3? Those are your options. What do you want to do? That's really it. After watching Mac Jones save the Niners season last year, and make no mistake about it, he did. 5-3 and 8 starts for your backup quarterback, beat the Rams in LA. He saved the season. He literally saved Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch from a ton of criticism. If Mac Jones is not there, they may win 2 of those 8 games. They probably go 2-6. At best, they go 3-5 instead of 5-3. And if they go 3-5, guess what? They don't make the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, they don't go to Philly and upset the Eagles. And then they just roll into the offseason after not making the playoffs, watching the Seahawks win the Super Bowl in their stadium. And this is year 10 of the regime, and they're not a 12-win team, and they're not coming off a playoff season. They're, maybe a sub 500 team or a 500 team or, somewhere right around 500, and they missed the playoffs, and it's 10 years in, and people would be barking for Shanahan and Lynch's head, and they would enter this year. They wouldn't have been fired, but they would have entered this year on the hot seat with lots and lots of people, basically saying it's now or never. And, the heat gets dialed up significantly on them. So they understand the value of Mac Jones. Mac Jones prevented all that from happening by the way he played, by being a starting quarterback, but being a number two. And he played amazing. And he won 5 games, and they went to the playoffs. They upset the Eagles. They had a great year. And, yeah, it hurt that the Seahawks won the Super Bowl in their stadium. But there's a lot more optimism because of their win in Philadelphia. There's a lot more optimism because they persevered without Warner and Bosa and circled the wagons and played some great ball at the end. So totally different vibe because of Mac Jones. So I don't think the Niners necessarily, in a year where they also want to have success, are going to be like, yeah, let's get Mac Jones the hell out of here. I don't see that. But then it's also hard to see them saying, oh, let's trade Curtis Rourke. He looks like a great young quarterback prospect. He's got size. He's got strength. He's got, he can throw the ball. He's accurate, fits the system. And then the question is, what is the market for either? What's the market for Jones? Is there any market for Jones? Is there any market for Rourke? That's the other thing. What if you come to some kind of conclusion that, you know what, we're willing to trade either one of those guys? But what if there's no market that really materializes? What if there's such a Kyle Shanahan bias that, there are people that think that Brock Purdy's not good, that it's all a product of Kyle Shanahan's magic? That those same people don't want to give you much for Mac Jones because of the same reason. It ain't Mac Jones. It's Kyle Shanahan's magic. And maybe even if Curtis Rourke plays well in this system in the preseason, there may be a bunch of teams that just go, you know what, John Lynch, I know he's available and we need a guy, but, we still think that if we took Rourke out of your system and away from Shanahan and put him in our system without Shanahan, then he's not going to be very good. So we'll give you a 6th-round pick. And then you're not going to trade Curtis Rourke for a 6th-round pick. That would be, that would probably be stupid. That would probably come back and burn you. So this becomes, last night, instantly the quarterback situation becomes a dilemma. Keep 3 or keep 2. And then if you're keeping 2, which 2? And what do you want for Mac Jones? I would want a 2nd-round pick for Mac Jones, or I want a player. And for Curtis Rourke, I would probably want, a 3rd or 4th-round pick or a player, or some combination thereof. Maybe a 5th-round pick and a player, something like that. But I would want something significant for either quarterback. I wouldn't just voluntarily give them up, because when you run out of quarterbacks, you run out of chances. Ty Simpson is supposedly struggling in the Rams camp this summer. Stafford's 38. If Stafford goes down, their season's probably cooked. What, you think they're gonna win games with Stetson Bennett? Think again. It's not gonna happen. Might win 1. You think they're gonna win games with Ty Simpson? Barely played in college, has had a half of one good college season. I mean, that's basically it. He was crap and down the stretch last year. He was great in the first part of the year and terrible in the second part of the year. So, teams like the Rams, they would love to have Mac Jones or Curtis Rourke or that quality of a backup. So anyway, that's the first point of last night. Curtis Rourke looked great. I don't think it's accidental, and it now kind of opens this whole can of worms about how do you go forward. And if it was me, I'd be interested to know what the offers were, but I'd be all about this year. Unless I really thought Curtis Rourke was, a great, like an all-time great, I would make the best deal I could make and see if I could get. The Niners probably need a little bit more pass rush. They definitely could use a better left guard. Is that player acquirable if you move Curtis Rourke? I don't know. I'm not sure, but if he is, it's definitely worth exploring. So that's the first story of the night. Curtis Rourke. Wow. The second story of the night, Dejon Stribling. And the Niners have been so hard pressed to find good receivers. I mean, this is the team that drafted Jerry Rice. This is the team that drafted Terrell Owens. These are two of the three best receivers that have ever played the game. You know, the Niners have had as much success drafting great receivers as almost any team in the history of pro football, just on those two names alone. But they have not been able to find a wide receiver in the draft for the most part for years. Pearsall's glass hurt all the time, and he's been a success story. And they found Debo and Juwan Jennings, but man, the Jalen Hurds and all the Dante Pettis's and just the list goes on and on. I could come. I mean, if you want to go look down the Niner draft history for the last 15 years, you're going to see all kinds of names. DeAndre Smelter and just all kinds of draft picks invested in wide receivers that didn't do anything. So it's hard to find a good wide receiver. Now, last night we got Niners Titans. Carnell Tate was awesome at Ohio State. He went 4th overall in the draft. And I heard a guy with Murph and Mack the other day was talking about fantasy impact of the rookie receivers. He's like, well, there's no doubt Carnell Tate will be the better of the two between him and Stribling. You still think that? You still think that? One guy's got Brock Purdy, who's absolutely accurate, throws the ball down the field. Kyle Shanahan, an offense that scores 30 to 35 points a game. Mike Evans on the other side, plus Kittle, plus CMC. You know, yes, that's reasons that you may not want him because you got to spread the football around, but you also are not going to double him. If Carnell Tate has one big game in September, he's going to be doubled all year. And then, you know, he's playing with Cam Ward, not Brock Purdy. He's playing with on an offense that really struggled. I mean, the Titans, this was the Titans 1s, by the way, going up against the Niners 2s and 3s. And yet the Titans offense, Cam Ward was 5 of 12 for 57 yards. That's not good. And he didn't look good in the Tuesday joint practice either. And Carnell Tate's going to get the ball a lot, right? Who are their other receivers? Calvin Ridley, Alec Ayamaner, Wandale Robinson came over from the G-Men in free agency. So it's Carnell Tate. You draft a receiver in the top 5, you're expecting to go to him a lot. Even though that he was targeted 3 times in the game, he was shut out, made no catches. And then there's Stribling, who was targeted 8 times in the game and caught 7 of the balls for 63 yards. I think Stribling, first of all, if you watch college football, Trinidad Chambliss is being discussed right now coming into this college football season as a great quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think he's an okay quarterback who has limitations as far as size and arm strength and throwing ability, who was made to look better by Dejon Stribling, you know, and Lane Kiffin too. But I'm not a Trinidad Chambliss fan, but at the end of the year, Trinidad Chambliss was the hottest thing in college football. Why? Dejon Stribling. Stribling kept having big games in the college football playoffs. The numbers are all there. Go look at it. The second game before they got eliminated, he had like 7 or 8 catches for 112 yards. He was a major player. He probably was the best wide receiver in the college football playoffs. And he kept making play after play after play after play down the field for Trinidad Chambliss. And now here we are going into this year, and it's like Trinidad Chambliss is going to be taken in the first round. The hell he is. He is not a first-round quarterback. But Stribling made him look like that at the end of the year. And Stribling's interesting. He's very serious. You know, he's the son of a military man. He's not the diva wide receiver talking a big game. And, you know, no, he's quiet. He's very serious. He's determined, strong, big receiver, 6'2 plus. Great size in the field, great strength, runs through arm tackles. Great run after the catch ability. The best receivers, when you watch them in practice, you're looking at their back a lot because they're running away from you. If you think about Jerry Rice, you close your eyes and think about Jerry Rice. If you're an older Niner fan, you were around for Jerry Rice, and you think of Jerry on the football field, what do you see? You see the back of his jersey. You remember the back of his jersey. You remember him running away from the defense, because that's what he did. Well, you forget about that after a while. You're like, oh, yeah, that was subtle, but it was meaningful. You think of all the Niner receivers recently, the last 20 years. To a man, I'm thinking about the front of their jersey. They're always working back to the quarterback. Juwan Jennings, Deebo Samuel. I'm not thinking about them running away. Terrell Owens ran away. Jerry Rice ran away. Since then, everybody's kind of coming back to the ball if you kind of just picture them running routes. Well, Stribling all summer has been running away from the defense. You're seeing the back of his jersey. He's catching the ball in the middle of the field, and he's taking it to the house. And his run after the catch is off the charts. So he looks good. He looks really good. And that one pass to the sideline where the pass was inside towards the defender, and he leaps, he reaches over the defender and rips it away. Veteran move. It's a rookie receiver. Most rookie receivers don't do much. This guy looks really, really good. So I thought he was a great story last night. The other great story, because the Niners had two receivers. The Niners had 13 receptions, 28 total receptions on the day. And 13 of the 28 went to two guys. 7 to Dejon Stribling, 6 to Jordan Watkins. Another Ole Miss guy, another pseudo rookie. He's not a rookie, but he is, because he really hasn't played. He had 6 catches for 59 yards on 10 targets. And he had an explosive in there. He had a 20-yard catch. And both these guys played at Ole Miss, and they both have big-time, another guy. We're talking about Stribling 4.36. We're talking about Watkins 4.37. These are burners. Absolute burners. Brock Purdy didn't have this kind of speed last year at all. And I asked Brock, I said, hey, man, what do you think of the extra speed this year? You got to love the speed that you guys have on offense. And he's like, yeah, man, it's really exciting. And Brock is such a class act. He's never going to tear anybody down. He's never going to point the finger. But he's like, we talked a lot last year about throwing the ball down the field, but you got to have the receivers to make that happen. You can't just say you want to throw the ball down the field. You got to have the guys. And that was like, Brock doesn't make statements like that very often. He's not critical of other people. He's not. And he doesn't point the finger ever. But he was just pointing out a reality, which is you can't be a vertical passing team without vertical threats. This just in. If you're going to throw bombs down the field, you got to have receivers that can get down the field. You got to have an offensive line that can block. You got to have a quarterback who can throw the rock. But you got to have receivers that can get down the field. You could have the greatest arm quarterback ever with the greatest offensive line ever. And if you don't have receivers that can get down the field, you're not going down the field. Well, look what they had at the end of last year. They had Malik Turner in the playoffs. Malik Turner, Kendrick Bourne, and Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings ran 4.76 for the 40 coming out of college. Bourne at this point is like a 4.8 wide receiver. Malik Turner is probably slower than those guys. That was the receiving core in the playoffs. And then Demarcus Robinson, who was their best receiver. Now, 1 year later, you've got all this speed. You got 4.36 Dejon Stribling. You got Mike Evans. You got 4.37 Jordan Watkins. You got some speed here. Wesley Grimes and Will Pauling both running the 4.3s. If either make the team. Pauling had 3 catches last night. Grimes had 1. They only targeted Grimes once, and he caught it. They only targeted Pauling 3 times. He caught all 3. Those guys running the 4.3s. So they have a lot more speed. And that's a big noticeable thing. The Niners are going to go down the field more. So those were the big stories last night. Look at the speed of Stribling and Watkins. Look at the quarterback potential of Curtis Rourke. All very exciting. And if that was the only story of the night, that would have been great. but there was more. What about all these defensive players? I mean, let me list the guys who played defense for the Niners that are young players getting better. Nick Martin, Tatum Bethune, Sebastian Valdez, Grayson Halton, Larry Worth III, James Thompson Jr., Jacob Robinson, Jalen Stroman, Ephesians Prysock, Jaden Duggar, Marquise Siegel, Bryson Eason, Romello Height, Darrell Luter. There's a lot of good young players there. There's a lot of good young players there. And how great was Grayson Halton? And it's funny, we talked to Kaseric, they let us talk to the coaches like a couple times a year. And it's always awesome. I love those days. I love the days when they make their coaches available. One, the coaches are cool guys. But two, they have all the information. And there's we're watching practice, and I know what I'm watching. But that's there's a big difference between I know what I'm watching and now I'm talking to the position coach who's going to give me kind of insights into, kind of what the Niners see with these players. And, so I talked to Chris, and it was like a 25-minute conversation. And he starts going down the list of guys. And I asked, tell me about Grayson Halton. And he's like, man, quick. He's got lower body quickness. This guy's really quick, really explosive. And then he said, what really stands out about him? He's got power, he's got speed, he's got quickness. But this guy loves to play the game. He's got football. He said it. He goes, Grayson Halton has football desire. He wants to make plays. He loves the game. Power, speed, quickness, but love for the game. And then he was asked by some guys, hey, man, he celebrates. He's having success, but he celebrates after he's successful. And Chris is like, hey, man, you don't want it to go overboard. You don't want it to be a negative thing. But he's like, I want guys who are fired up. I want guys who are going to, be excited. So and then Chris mentioned that Halton at Oklahoma played in a totally different scheme than the scheme that they're using now. So it's going to take him some time. And he didn't look good at the beginning of camp, but man, he loves to play the game and he's quick as heck. And he's an interior rusher of note. So that's him. And he looked really, really good. Then I asked him about Bryson Eason. Bryson Eason, I got to go back and watch the film. I haven't done the rewatch yet. I'll do it tonight. But Bryson Eason was the highest graded 49er defender of any of them, according to PFF. I didn't even notice him. But he's quick, and he's got a power pass rush. And, Chris is like, man, he's a great guy, too. The arrow's pointing up on him as a person. This guy can penetrate. He's quick. He's got pass rush, but he's got power. We're talking about a guy who's 320 pounds. He's a converted linebacker. He can come out of his stance and just kind of with a straight arm, just kind of get that penetration in the backfield. But then he also has the quickness to come off the block and go sack the quarterback. So he really liked him. And Eason was the highest graded PFF guy. The guy that I loved the most out of the trio was this guy they got after the draft as well with Bryson Eason, and that's James Thompson Jr., who played at Wisconsin, and then he finished up last year at Illinois. The guy had 36 reps for 225. 36 reps. I mean, to put that in perspective, I think DJ Jones, who was probably one of the strongest defensive linemen the Niners have had in this regime, during this Shanahan regime, I think he had 23 reps or 26 reps, I think it was. CJ West, who's a really strong interior tackle, former Indiana Hoosier, he had 23 reps. So think about that. CJ West on the bench, pumping out 225, 20, 21, 22, 23. James Thompson's on the next bench going 13 more reps. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 30. See what I'm saying? And that's when you really think about those 36 reps and how few guys get 36 reps. Maybe I'm just a weightlifting idiot, and so I'm more impressed by that than others, but that is strong. And this guy's got strength that is off the charts. He's got great strength. Great strength. By the way, on another note, I'm going to share the screen on this. This is not from last night, but I did see this today. I'm going to put it up there, let you guys take a look. Our man Raj from RSF 49ers, according to Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network, the 49ers, Bills, and Bears have checked in on the availability of Buccaneers defensive tackle Vita Vea. Wow. Vita Vea went to Milpitas High School in the shadows of Levi Stadium. What would it take? Once again, I love their interior players, and we're talking about them right now. But the presence of Halton and Eason and Thompson may make Alfred Collins available. And you might be able to, if they don't want to upgrade or pay, I should say, extend Vita Vea. Would they take Alfred Collins in a 4th-round pick for Vita Vea? Would you do that if you're Jason Licht? You might. If you've decided you can, now Licht is on record as saying he's not trading Vita Vea. But that's what you say until you trade him, generally. It's basically like, hey, we're not trading him, but make us an offer. But the Niners have a lot of good young defensive players, but they could use one more or two more difference makers up front. They really, what's a young DB's friend? Pass rush. The Niners have a lot of good young DBs. But, the one thing about Raheem Morris is he didn't draft Alfred Collins. And he didn't draft C.J. West. And he didn't draft Mikael Williams. And he didn't draft some of these guys that he inherited here, and we don't know if he likes them. Now, he's never going to tell you. I'm not going to go down there tomorrow and be like, yeah, by the way, I was talking to Raheem Morris, and he says he doesn't like Alfred Collins. No, he's not going to tell you that. It's just not good business, not smart. But I've talked about this in some videos. It's probably not realistic to think that every single player that he inherited from Robert Saleh is a fit for his defense and a player that he wants. So we shall see. We shall see how this goes and what the Niners add. If there's anything that obviously injuries could change the whole conversation. But if there's anything that I would say, what do the Niners need to get over the top? I think they need one or two more defensive front seven guys. Vita Vea would be great. He would be absolutely great. 350 pounds, and yet he gives you pass rush. And, he's just a monster that has to be doubled. And if you have Vita Vea in the middle and you have Osa, good luck. You got to double Osa. And you got to double Vita Vea. And you used to have to double Nick Bosa on the perimeter. So you can't double them all. And that much we know. So that, to me, that's where, if there's one thing I could do to if I was John Lynch, to try to get that 6th Lombardi in the Jed York trophy case, it's probably, add a front seven player. Now, think about it. If you're Jason Licht and the Niners, Bills, and Bears are coming asking about Vita Vea in a trade, who are you going to trade him to out of that trio? Buffalo. He's going to Buffalo. You can trade him to Buffalo. Why would you ever trade the 49ers or the Bears, two NFC contenders, a difference-making player that could get them over the top and go so they could go to the Super Bowl instead of you? I kind of think the Buccaneers are a dark horse candidate for the Super Bowl this year, which makes this Vita Vea talk kind of perplexing, to be completely honest. But that one right there is interesting. Very, very interesting. Would the 49ers get in the mix for Vita Vea? That would be incredible. And what would it take? And is it something they could get done? This is also kind of an interesting little soundbite. This is Jordan Watkins in the postgame with Matt Lively and Vern and Lo Neal on picks. And we'll play this. This is a good little soundbite from Jordan Watkins. Good dude. Talked to him a few times last year. Man, I really believe in this kid. I've been saying it for a while, to the point where people are like, really? He sucks. No, it's just taken a while. It has not come quick. Here's the TV segment on picks last night. Love me some Vern. The other guys are pretty good guys too. Oh, wait a second. Let's get the audio up. So that's Lo Neal on the right, Vern in the center, Lively on the left. All good dudes, by the way. Here we go.
And this is exciting because we've got Jordan Watkins, the second-year wide receiver, joining us now. Jordan, welcome to the fifth quarter. Nice night for you, man. 6 catches. What was it like to get back out there?
It felt great. Felt really good to get up, like back out there with the guys, especially after how last season went for me, and, to be able to go out there and make some plays. It felt really, really nice.
Hey, Jordan, one final question for you. You've added Mike Evans and Deebo Samuel to your wide receiver room. What's a piece of advice that one of those guys has given you early on in this training camp and preseason that you've taken to heart?
Yeah, those 2 guys have been great. And it's been really, really fun to be able to learn from them. Mike I think this is year 13 for him, and Deebo, being here his entire career. So those guys know what it takes to make plays in this league, and they've just been telling me to be physical out there. Use my speed to my advantage, and also, I'm not a small guy, but I'm not the biggest guy out there. Just be physical with guys and use my strength to get open, and also use my speed to get open. And like I said, being able to lean on those guys, this far during camp has been really, really fun.
2 great guys to learn from. Jordan, congrats on a great game, and thanks for joining us here on the fifth quarter.
Yeah, thank you.
There you go. Little Jordan Watkins there. The Niners have, the best kind of way to build your roster is have a great veteran that leads the way. And that's what they have in Mike Evans. They got a lot of young receivers in that room, and they're looking at Mike Evans. There's a lot of good young linebackers in that room. They're looking at Dre Greenlaw, and they're looking at Fred Warner. There's a lot of great defensive linemen in that room. They're looking at Nick Bosa. A lot of great running backs, Kalen Black, Jordan James. There's a lot of good-looking running backs there. They're looking at CMC. A lot of, I don't know about a lot of good tight ends, but, the tight ends are staring at George Kittle. I mean, the offensive linemen are staring at Trent Williams. I mean, they're looking at maybe the best at their position almost across the board. And it's a great thing for the 49ers for sure, to have those guys setting that example. You have a great example set in the room. That's a great thing. 49ers tried out some 3 corners today, 3 cornerbacks, Bryce Hall, Corey Mayfield, Troy Pride, Matt Mayoko reporting that today. So no question, this is you're always looking for more guys. You're always looking for, better and more young players that can do more things. But there were a lot of great highlights last night. Ephesians Prysock, had a 43.1 passer rating when targeted against the Titans. Long, rangy corner who really, really looks good. Jaden Duggar, offensive football is about creating space. We've talked about this many times. Defensive football is about closing space. You want to see Jaden Duggar? Jaden Duggar is Mr. Closing. I'm closing this space. His college film was awesome. Look at this play. Look at the space closed here by Jaden Duggar. This is unbelievable. If you look at how much space is closed down, you're going to see the space right here closed down. You're going to see this guy, big rangy linebacker, is going to come flying out here. And watch how fast this space gets closed. And this is part of the greatness of this potential pick, is the range on this inside linebacker, who can be a multi-purpose defender.
Running the corner.
We'll turn. Well, I guess we'll leave the audio up. Here it is.
but he has got counter moves, which is rare for a lot of young guys coming into this league.
Lined up at left edge again here on first down for Ward, who wants to throw as height goes down. Ward tries to pump. Jaden Duggar tracks him down, and the rookie won't let him get away.
Love that. Jaden Duggar guy is built like the old Sam linebackers of the 1980s and 1990s. 6'5", about 240. He's playing in the middle at Mike right there. He's secondary contained guy. Romello Height goes down. Cam Ward takes off. Here comes the secondary contained player, Jaden Duggar, and he tracks him down. And you see that wingspan right there on the young linebacker.
There you go. T-Rock and Guy Haberman on the call on KMBR. Great stuff there from the fellas. And they're going to have a really good year. All right, let's share the screen. Oh, we were already sharing the screen. Let's show you this one. This is Ephesians Prysock, a 6'4" corner, and this was a beautiful play. I'm going to see if we can make it.
Pitch arms, the longest of any corner at the bottom, and that's where Ward wants to go. And the long arms of Prysock win that battle. 33 and an 8-inch arms, the longest of any cornerback at the NFL at the bottom.
Watch it again.
Where Ward wants to go, and the long arms of Prysock win that.
It's a great call by Haberman, and the long arms of Prysock make that play. And if we can find another angle here, I think there's another angle. You get a real vibe for what, so for what he can do. And he's just really intriguing, tall corner, great length. He can close down that space. And he's really impressive. Another guy that I thought was really impressive, look at this play. This is Jacob Robinson. Now, I really like Jacob Robinson. He played at BYU. Another corner, ran 4.3. Didn't make the team last year, but he looked great in camp. Talked to him a number of times last year. He was on the practice squad. He got a year of development and didn't make a lot of noise early in this camp. But, man, look at this play. This might be one of the plays of the night. This kid comes up from the corner. Right here, he was going up against Wan'Dale Robinson most of the night, which is a tough cover because Wan'Dale caught a lot of balls last year. But look at this guy come firing up and just destroy this play.
Fumble snap, and that's a ball out.
That is a ball out. Jacob Robinson, my goodness, I think it was him coming off the slot. Right when we're talking Raheem, they come with a slot corner blitz. It's going to flash left side of your screen, and the ball was never there. I mean, it looked like the snap got bobbled and never really got the handoff, but Jacob Robinson right there, good call, hitting that right in the face.
Kind of scary contact, to be completely honest. It's almost head and neck area right there for Jacob Robinson. But, I mean, it kind of illustrates what we were talking about earlier. There's money on the table, and people have to go get it, and that's really what this thing's about. Go get the cash, Go walk through that door. They ought to let me speak to the guys before the game because that's really what it's about. It's about, hey, man, go get that money for your family. NFL careers, it's short. It goes away fast. Here, look at Grayson Halton on this one. This kid has got a lot of juice. Now, this is the Baldy breakdown. So listen to Baldy, who's awesome. We love Baldy. But this is the Baldy breakdown online talking about Grayson Halton. And here's you got to love Baldy.
Had 3 picks in the 4th round. The first pick in the 4th round was Grayson Halton. He played half the snaps last night. He recognizes the choke block right here, plays over the top of it, gets off the block, and makes the tackle. He was explosive right out of his shoes last night. You watch him right here, and here you go. Like he sees the double. All right, now get off the block. All right, don't refuse to stay blocked, and then be violent with the tackle. He showed up a lot last night. Here he is. Like, just explodes out of this stance. Like, here he comes. This is what you want to see. Like, you watch this move right here into the guard. All right, recognize the play. Here he is. That's how you stop the run. All right, you refuse to stay blocked. One more play right here from Grayson Halton. You just got to love this right here. This is how he, all right, feels the double team right here. Now don't stay blocked. Get off the block and get in on the tackle. I thought Grayson Halton last night, half the snaps, showed up, showed out. OU DNA, baby. Here's had three.
I love Baldy, man. Baldy's the best. So there you go. There you go. Good stuff. Quick hour. Just talking through some of the game last night, and we'll have a lot more to say about it when I do the rewatch and really watch it in great detail. But man, a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff. We didn't see Romello Height show up as big, but you know what? You got to give it time. So we'll see. We'll see. By the way, Nate Hobbs, you see the Niners working out corners. Nate Hobbs has an injury. Shanahan told us last night he's going to be out a few weeks. So that's probably why they're looking at corners. So they're trying to replace Nate Hobbs, who's got an injury and he'll be out. I think they said 2 or 3 weeks. So that's going to do it for us. We started with 20 people in the room. There's 210 people hanging out right now. Thanks to all of you guys. We're here every night at 6:00 on the KNBR YouTube channel when we're not on the radio. So when the Giants are not on, I'll be on the radio from 6 to 7. But when the Giants are on, you'll catch me here on Niners Nightly. Now, next week, we should tell you that some of those Niners Nightly shows, when the Niners are back east, because we would prefer to put Niners Nightly on the radio than on the YouTube side, just because it's a much bigger audience on the radio side. So we'll be coming on late night, like after Sports Phone at 9:00. For some of the games, some of the shows next week. So we'll have Niners Nightly on the radio, but it'll be at night after Sports Phone and not on YouTube next week. So as we're trying to bring more of the Niner conversation to the radio audience. So we'll have that for you. Jay LaRue says the YouTube is better. All right. Well, hey, that's a beautiful thing. One last one. See if I can see one. There's one last cut I wanted to play for you guys. And it was let's see if I can find it here. I think it was Coach Yak had it. And it was the combo sack from Larry Worth and James Thompson Jr. And I'm pretty sure Coach Yak had it. Let me see if I can give it to you guys before we get out of here. But I talked to Larry Worth in the locker room afterwards. What a great guy he is. And what an intriguing player. Really intriguing. He had a half a sack. It was great. It was the first guys coming up to him at his locker saying, man, way to go. So by the way, Sebastian Valdez, also talked to him last night after the game. 5 tackles, nice TFL. Sebastian Valdez looked really, really good. And he's, a second-year player who's coming on. Do we have I'm looking for maybe Raj had it. I'll look for it here, but I'll see if we can, before we get out of here, if I can show it to you. Just really impressive performance from Larry Worth. I thought Ogbo Okoronkwo, who had a sack, also looked pretty good. Ogbo is a nice veteran addition for the 49ers. He looks like a guy who might be able to, anybody that can give you pass rush, you're interested in. And Ogbo Okoronkwo on the outside, Grayson Halton on the inside, they can give you pass rush. If you have more pass rush, that's a great thing. The more pass rush you can generate, the better. All right, let me look at RSF 49ers because I did see it last night, and I'd love to share it with you. But I really love the talent of Larry Worth. And we were joking because he's got his own YouTube channel. And I'm like, bro, you got to come on my YouTube channel. He said he would. So, he's got his own YouTube channel. And I said, hey, man, I started mine in 2022. He's like, I started mine in 2022. And he's like, I got like 7,000 subs or 5,000 subs or whatever. I'm like, oh, it sounds awesome. He goes, how about you? And I'm like, I kind of felt sheepish. I'm like, well, we got like 70,000. He's like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, but, we're media guys. We're talking Niners. Most of the people are there are there for you guys, not for us. But I'm like, yeah, man, we got to have you on. He's like, I love working on my YouTube channel. It's outside of football. It's the thing that I love most is working on my YouTube channel. So very interesting guy. And if I could find you the combo sack, and I think I can here. Just give me 1 second before we get out of here. I loved it. I also thought Khalil Herbert actually looked pretty good. You know, the other great one, and this is off the scoreboard. Here, somebody put this out. Raj put this out over the scoreboard. Listen, this was my favorite play of the entire game. And this is my guy here, Tatum Bethune. I'm a big Tatum guy. I talk to him all the time. He's a great guy. Scoreboard. Here he is. Here comes Tatum Bethune running back. Get lost. And the quarterback's going down. Nick Singleton. Highway 32. And Tatum Bethune just ran right over him. That was an awesome play. That to me was the play of the game right there. I love that play. That was fantastic. And there were several, great moments for sure for the 49ers, but that was my favorite. If I could find you the Larry Worth, man, I really would. The Larry Worth and James Thompson. Here, well, maybe I'll go to. I think I retweeted it, so let me take a look. Maybe I'll go to my own thing from yesterday and see if I can recall it for you guys. Just fantastic. The athleticism of Larry Worth is really impressive. No, I guess I don't have it. So Larry Worth and James Thompson had a combo sack, and I can't find it for you. Otherwise, I'd play it. But Larry Worth, got to watch for sure. 6'4", 220, strikes with force, runs like the wind. Very impressive player. Very impressive player. How good? We got a couple questions in here. How good is Xavier Thomas? Let me watch him a little bit. Let me study him a little bit. He played at Clemson. Played with Arizona. Clemson's always had a lot of guys coming into the league. They've got a lot of interesting players every year. Let me check him out. We got a guy here saying, I think Ogba will have a better season than Melo. Well, it's easy to say that. Pass rushing and D-line play is very technique rich. That's how guys last for a long time. Von Miller's still doing it at 37. Why? Because he's got the technique down. It's a technique rich position. So the veterans do have an advantage on the young guys. My old mentor, Bill Urbanek, used to say, youth has been wasted on the young. He had so many funny lines, but youth is wasted on the young. Oh, man. Seahawks added Terrion Arnold. I did see that. I was hoping the 49ers would take a look at him because he's very talented, but he's also kind of troubled. And we got this one here. That's from Kenny. We got this one from J-Tan. He says, Vita Vea wants to come back to California. Bring him back. I think the Niners are uniquely positioned. Think about it from Jason Licht's point of view. You got a gigantic nose guard who's good against the run, but you can't afford him anymore. And the Niners could come calling and say, here's Alfred Collins in a draft pick, a young defensive tackle who's really big, really strong, about ready to come into his own on a rookie deal. Alfred Collins is a very valuable player because of a lot of those reasons. If you're Jason Licht and you're afraid to lose Vita Vea, who knows? Maybe you'd be willing to take on Alfred Collins. At the end of the day, I can't imagine that Jason Licht would trade Vita Vea to the Bears or the Niners in a year where you've got, the Buccaneers are a Super Bowl contender. They're going to trade an impact defensive front seven guy to a team in their conference. I find that really, really hard to believe, but you never know. You never know. It would be great. It'd be great. Vita Vea would make a huge impact on that Niner defensive line. All right, that is going to do it for us. Thanks to all of you for being with us. We went about 10 minutes extra just for the hell of it. Have a great night. Thanks for supporting Niners Nightly on the KNBR YouTube channel. Have a great weekend. Peace.